Good evening. This is John Warren, publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, coming to you with our program From the Desk to the Editor, an open mic program where we invite you to call in your comments, your questions, your concerns. There are so many issues confronting us, both locally, nationally, and internationally. As you know, the Voice and Viewpoint is San Diego's oldest African American publication. Originally in 89 zip codes, 17 cities, and the unincorporated areas. I say originally because with the internet digital availability of the paper, we have gone national and international. So we are excited about the growth factor that we're experiencing. And we invite you to share your questions or concerns with us because that's the reason we do this, so that we still have a forum. We are the trusted messenger, and we do want to hear from you in the course of what we do. I'm joined by Dr. Leonard Thompson III here this evening as we prepare to launch into a number of questions.
Yes, Dr. Warren, and we just want to let everybody know tonight, if you have questions, we're going to ask you to go to our social media platforms. You will have us on Facebook at godradio1.com. You will have us at Facebook at Voice and Viewpoint, and you will have us on LinkedIn as well as YouTube, God Radio 1. And tonight we are going live on Instagram, godradio1.com. So 5 ways to get in and to listen, or you can go directly to our website. But we want to welcome everybody in tonight and want to say thank you for attending. Dr. Warren, it is a very, very busy day in our community, in our city. The city proposed draft budget came out today. Can we start there?
Well, we can start with it. It is what they say, a draft. There will be some revisions. I understand that some positions within City Hall are already in the budget. There are cuts that are going to be made in a number of areas. As usual, we'll be fighting to preserve libraries and rec centers and hours of operation for the community. But I like to remind people that if you don't vote, you don't have a voice. And so when it really goes down to the wire and those council members for the 9 districts are voting on the budget, making adjustments, you also have to remember that Todd Gloria can't run again. So this is his, he no longer has vulnerability in terms of election as mayor. And I don't know what else he's going to run for or come back, but the budget has to be balanced by law, not only for the city, but for the school district, for the state. All of these budgets have to be balanced within the time frame. And we know that thanks to Donald Trump, everything is costing us much more than it did a year ago. So our deficits are going to be larger. And we're going to have to make some adjustments, personal, family, business, social, economic adjustments will have to be made. Food prices are up. They're going to go up even more. All of the good old boy farmers who voted for Trump are now getting a payback with higher fertilizer prices and harvest time, planting time, really, and the ability to do so. It's a crisis because so much of our food supply is owned by, I think, 3 major corporate entities in America, and the little guys are being driven out of business, and the higher prices for a seed and fertilizer and equipment is certainly adding to it. And let us not forget the black farmers who have never been made whole, even after Congress passed laws and put money there, is still trying to find its way to them. So these are very serious economic times, separate and apart from our sons and daughters being sent by the thousands to the Middle East to fight the president's war of choice, to lay their lives on the line for regular premium and high tests, as opposed to any democratic principles that we might have.
Well, Dr. Warren, one of the things that is really unique is that Donald Trump seems to consistently say that, it's going to be all right. It's going to be tough for a moment, but he blows it off as if this is just going to be all pretty and everything's going to be fun and everybody's going to be happy. And I'm wondering, when are we going to say enough's enough?
Well, Donald Trump suffers from what some people might identify as dementia praecox, illusions of grandeur, and he's never had any hard times in his life. He hasn't missed any meals or dollars or had to pay any bills or, he's gotten out of everything that he's ever gotten into one way or another. And in addition to that, I believe that the man is amoral and that he has really reached a point with his mental insanity that he does not uh, care one way or the other. He's amoral. He doesn't care about how many people die for him. He doesn't care about people who vote for him. Everything he does is centered around him. And when you deal with the mentally ill, you don't blame them as much for being mentally ill as you do the people who still allow them to operate as if everything is okay
Hmm.
from positions of power and influence. And so, Trump is less and less the issue, and the people around him who know better and have the capacity to do something different are more and more coming under scrutiny. Like, how much is enough?
Yeah, and one of the things that this really is disturbing to me, Dr. Warren, overall is the fact that the religious right is not speaking up.
Well, the religious right has been just that, religious. Uh, Christ was never about religion. Religion has always been man's effort to try to reach God, and Christ was God's effort to reach man.
Mhm.
And so, religion is like tradition. It's something. The devil is religious.
Mhm.
He's got all kinds of religions, and so the religious right has never been Christ-like,
Mhm.
because if it was, it couldn't have tolerated all the things that it's let go by, the racism, the hatred, the inequality. Um, Support of Trump, man, they can't hold the Bible right side up and think the book of Job is the book of Jobs, and he's never read scripture in his life. We never had a president that didn't pray, didn't read. We never had the whole idea of men in leadership is that they stand in connection with God, and they're supposed to get direction. That's why we have coordinations and the ordinations and all of those things, replication of what happened on in the wilderness when Moses selected the 70 some tribal elders to become the interim judges, which is like our lower courts today, and laid hands and prayed and asked the Lord to put the same spirit on them that he had put on Moses so that he could rule and make wise decisions. And so these people don't stand in that position. All of their positions have always been from the standpoint of their own selfish interests. And there's nothing selfish about Christ. And so they are not believers. And I always remind people when you talk about Christianity that Jesus was not a Christian. That Christians is what they call people who followed him.
Mhm.
And obviously, these people are not following him. They never have really.
Mhm.
They've always been about their own self interest, and we've kind of given them a pass.
Yes, and I've never met or seen a president, the United States president, attack the Pope as he has done, and not only has he done it, but now his crony J.D. Vance is doing the exact same thing, literally almost saying that the Pope doesn't really understand and he doesn't have the capacity to think on their level.
Well, J.D. Vance is a hillbilly that got out of the hills and uh, figured out how to get close to power. And he's always been about that. He will be whatever he needs to be to get where he wants to go. And some Republicans have him thinking that he's going to he's going to be president in 2028. And J.D. Vance has got about as much business being president as Bugs Bunny does stepping out of a cartoon. And I don't think with Trump out of the way, I think what happened to Orteron the other day is let Trump know that he picked a bad role model, just trying to follow this man after 16 years and people are hungry, put him out of power. He's going to go to jail. He's got all kind of trials waiting for him. Benjamin Netanyahu Bibi's got stuff waiting for him. That's why he keeps bombing and fighting everybody. He got to keep the fight going because when the fight's over, he's going to jail. He's already been declared a war criminal, An international court of The Hague has looked got an arrest warrant out for him. That's why he can't travel but so far. So, it all catches up. And the moral pendulum, as King and them have referred, it always swings, but it finds its balance.
Well, let me ask you this question, and I have to ask this: is that what happened to the attacks in Venezuela? What happened to the war in Ukraine? It seems like all of those things are off of the conversation, and it's like they're not even happening anymore.
Well, Venezuela is no longer a problem. They got millions of barrels of their oil. The oil is coming here. They got their money. They're controlling it. They're controlling the people who are in power, so they don't have to worry about it. Next target is Cuba. They're gonna go in and take over Cuba, and he's busy right now with Iran, but he's gonna get to Cuba to mess with them. I think something has happened very significant today where our European allies have come together to do a strategy on the Strait of Hormuz without America being involved, and NATO and others are making now global decisions with the exclusion of America because Trump has alienated those who would have been our friends, and he's just crazy.
Yes, yes, yes. So, Dr. Warren, lots is going on. We have a young man by the name of James Cannon that just put up here April 1st, 2006, Donald J. Trump, the White House, Washington, D.C. subject, a father to father appeal for black, uh, what is that? Rep, let me make sure I read it right. Reparative justice. And it says, um, family restoration, and national strength. Mr. President, I write to you not first as a partisan man, but as a father. I write as a black father in America, as a man who has watched the nation celebrate freedom while often delaying justice, and as a man who knows what it feels like to see his son punished by the crowd by speaking what he believes. And so that came from James Cannon. I believe that is the father of Nick Cannon that just posted that up there. Good evening to you. Again, this is an open mic format, and we have to continue to move forward. There are a lot of things that are taking place, but again, when it comes down to Donald J. Trump, if you agree with him, he supports you. If you disagree with him, he attacks you. And if you supported him at one point and disagrees with him at another point, he's an equal opportunity. If you with me, you with me. And if you're not with me, then I got to try to destroy you. And at some point, we have to take a stand and say, we're not going to let this continue to take place against anybody, not only the people we know, but, America in general.
Well, first let me address. I know Mr. Cannon, and I know Nick's been under attack as well as others. All the people of color are under attack. It's just a question of when do they get to us. Okay, I used to tell people years ago, San Diego is one of those places. If you stay black and stay in San Diego, your day will come.
Mhm.
And so my problem is not the people that he's attacking so much, is how the rest of us are standing on the sidelines, and then we only want to speak out when it gets close to home. And where are we the rest of the time? Right now, in just a few short weeks, we're going to have the indivisible people doing the May 1st economic uh, protest or march, which is supposed to exceed the 9 million people that participated in the No King's Day marches and celebrations over the past three times. And so uh, blacks are sitting it out saying, we don't want to be involved. They haven't done this, that, and the other. I don't think we can afford to sit anything out. I think everybody is involved, and we're involved by virtue of our complexion. We're the only people in America that couldn't assimilate because our skin color didn't allow it. The Jews, the Mexicans, everybody else could change their names. That they had enough light complexion to kind of pass when they wanted to. But we were always divisible or visible and identifiable. So we got a lot on our plate. Some of us are not dealing with the social issues because we're still trying to eat from day to day, to have shelter from day to day, to have transportation. And all of that's by grand design. Okay. But we feed some of this because what few dollars we have, and that's why this May 1st demonstration is going to be so important. They're saying on May 1st that people shouldn't spend any money whatsoever. I've been saying that Black folks in particular should only buy what we need and eliminate what we want. And it's a good discipline to start eliminating the things that you want that you don't have to have. I mean, you got a shortage of money. Why are you paying $15 for a pack of cigarettes?
Mhm.
You know, you got a shortage of money. Why are you, paying $12 for a six pack of beer? Is that a necessity? No, it's not. Are the sodas and the chips necessities? No, they're things we want. The trips to McDonald's and KFC and Popeyes and all that, those are wants. They're not needs. And so when we start changing how we spend, it will have a ripple effect. And if we make it known that our selective buying and our only dealing with what we need is because of what we're experiencing and because of the support that corporate America is giving Trump and all of his minions. I want to tell you one more time there's only three things that corporate America understands: lost profits, bad publicity, and votes cast against their interests. Those are the only three things that get their attention. And if you don't have enough financial influence to affect their lost profits, then you certainly have enough money to influence the publicity that they get and to vote against their interests where the votes come up.
Well, that's the big thing. We have the power of the vote. And it's about are we, will we, can we, do we use the power of the vote? But not only do we have the power of the vote, but we have the power of spending over $1 trillion+ in the economy yearly, annually. Will we use that power, or have we been so complacent and so lulled into this? We have to have it this way. We want this, we want that, that we won't take a shot. And I want to say this, you know, uh, for me, Dr. LT loves a good piece of fried chicken. Now, I'm just going to be honest. I used to go to Popeyes a lot. And till you talked about Popeyes and talked about how much grease it was, then they changed their recipe. And I said, well, there went Popeyes out the door. You know what I'm saying? And KFC and everybody else. Now, I will say that Albertson still is a friend. But what I hear you're saying is that we can do the same thing at home cheaper and literally reserve our dollars to be more economically sound, economically powerful, but also when we hurt the bottom line, their pocketbooks, they will have to listen.
That's all that they understand is the purse, and even the chicken. I mean, we got books at the Voice and Viewpoint that shows what kind of prices things cost 50, 60 years ago. Fryers were 29 cents a pound, whole chickens. And you could take a chicken home and you could cut it up and you could put it in a pot, boil it, and you could put noodles in it, or you could decide to make chicken and dumplings. And there's all kinds of things you can do. You can still do it. I mean, I even to this day, when I fix chicken with the diet that I want for my wife, I will uh, season it with no salt, with dash no salt blend, and put it in the crock pot and let it cook slowly. Okay. And so yeah, we could make changes because it we don't have the money to do what we used to do.
Mhm.
I remember 60 years ago when people started going to McDonald's, it was the thing to do. You could take the family to McDonald's in the car uh, for under $20.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, you could get the milkshake, the fries, the burgers, and you could get the carload of people. You could have six people in the car, and you could buy all of that with $20, and you could get it back. Now, when you look at the way they have to identify the food, if you go to McDonald's and buy one of those big breakfasts in the morning, you have exceeded your sodium intake for the day just on that alone. Okay, and it was one of those countries in the islands. I can't remember the name of it right now, where the people voted McDonald's off the island because of the impact that they saw of the fast food on the residents in terms of how they were doing. So this is, Yeah, we just got to wake up. We must wake up because healthcare is up. The support for healthcare is down. More and more people are showing up at the emergency room because that's the only place that we can go. Okay. And, I hear people complaining, well, I did this, but what are you doing to help your health in terms of what's taking place? Because there are people that can't get to the emergency room. And
Mhm.
if they get there, they can't get treated because they don't have monies. And so we need to just be conscious of how fortunate we are and make some strong decisions.
Well, Dr. Warren, here is a question that has come up now that a few candidates have been eliminated from the Democratic primary in the race for governor of California. Are you prepared at this time, Dr. Warren, to give an endorsement?
No, I'm not prepared to give an endorsement. I'm glad Swalwell is out. Never liked him in the first place. Didn't trust him. And I'm just had a meeting this week with all of my publishers in California, the black publishers, and I shared with them, let's stop begging people to do business with us. I have an editorial this week that makes it very clear that how is it that you can allow someone to come and say they want your vote and they ignore your institutions. Newspapers are still important. If you don't believe it, when you watch cable, CNN, and you watch MS New Now, and all of those things, 90% of the information they're quoting is coming from newspapers. It's coming from the reporters that are doing the on the ground stuff in terms of writing and investigating. And so, how are these people going to tell you that they want your support and they won't spend a dime with black media? Dr. Thompson, Voice and Viewpoint, the other 12, 15 black papers in the state, they don't want to spend money with us, and because they've decided that we're not really necessary. And yet the media, mainstream media, not millions, they're making billions of dollars with a B during this whole political season. Now, I am very disappointed. I just got to stress this. I am so disappointed with the Democratic Party one more time about here we have all these people trying to run. You know, if it's clear that you can't win, get your butt out of the race because here's what can happen, folks. If we keep on playing friendship and voting for folks because, well, I like Tony and I like Villa de la Rosa and I like Bracera and they've been around. And then when you finish playing that game, what's going to happen is there are going to be two Republicans running on the other side in the primary. And if they are the two highest vote getters, then they will face each other in the general election in November. And the idea of having a Democratic governor in California following Gavin Newsom will be a thing of the past just because of the crab mentality that people didn't know how to step aside and get out of the race and consolidate so that we could have a chance to win. We must do that, even as we are faced with it right here in San Diego County. Uh, Daryl Eisel was smart enough to get out. Well, look, the guy was already a multimillionaire. He did the Viper alarm system for cars before he went to Congress. Now he's going to get a congressional retirement check on top of everything else. And who did he anoint? Jim Desmond. Now, Jim Desmond is a Republican from North County. He's a nice guy. I've met him. I talked to him. I think he was an airline pilot for like 30 years or something like that. Um, and he's for Republican values. I can understand that. But we have Marty Von Wuphoff running as a Democrat. And one of the reasons we did Prop 50 was so that we would have a chance to pick up additional Democratic seats in California so that we can get control of the House. Now, it looks like so far in the House, the number of Republicans that are falling by the wayside supporting Trump has probably exceeded 35. So it looked like we can get it. But let's not just stop there. Okay, let's hold these people's feet to the fire. Let's not have folks coming to us the Sunday before the election. The election is June 2nd, and they're going to show up at our churches and smile and wave, and we're going to greet them and then go out and vote for them. Don't do that. And I don't think we should be making any endorsements now until we find out who's going to be there. That's the key, because I don't understand how Becerra or what's his name, Bella LaRosa, who was former mayor of L.A., and all these people that are in the race. Some of them you're just hearing about. This guy named Horton is a Republican. They're talking about him. He's talking about how much he loves Trump, so he ought to be eliminated. Anyone who is standing up, confessing a love for Donald Trump, should automatically be scratched. And I'm going to say this one last thing. There was a meeting last week, the African American Empowerment Community Coalition was to interview 3 candidates for governor: Katie Porter, Swalwell, and Tom Steyer. And the only one that showed up was Tom. But now Tom was asked a question about doing business, campaigning, and making sure that he included the black press in his effort to reach the black vote. And what did he say? He said, I understand, I've given some money to Thomas Smiley. What they got to do with the question? All black people are not joined at the hip. And there's
who is
this
Thomas Smiley?
Thomas Smiley is a black media guy who's been off and on television, and he's like Don Lemons. He's over there, Joy Reid. These are people that have had a presence, okay? But I get tired of people assuming that when you talk to one black person, you talk to all black people.
Exactly.
And I asked this question of white folks so that they can understand it. I said, I want you to go stand on the corner of Prospect and Ivanhoe in La Jolla. I want you to stop the first white person you see and ask them a question. And the answer you get, I want you to come back and tell me that this is what all white people think.
Yeah.
And now, that sounds absolutely ridiculous. That's how ridiculous it is to act like black folks think in a unison. Okay.
Well, see, that's the thing. When you said Thomas, I was like, who Thomas? But it's Travis Smiley. Now,
I mean, Travis.
Yeah, I know who Travis
Smiley
is.
and Tom. Yeah, I'm talking about Tom.
But you know, Travis Smiley don't represent the full diaspora of what we consider to be African or black people. And again, he's one man.
He represents himself.
We have 200 plus newspapers, radio stations, churches. And I've never seen Travis Smiley in San Diego.
Of course not. And I'm referring to our media entities as institutions because we're 199 years old. We're institutions, okay? And the church is undergoing a transformation right now. And they're talking about Senator Warnock, Raphael Warnock was on MS Now, and on Jen Psaki, and he was being questioned about Trump. You know, people ought to take very seriously that IA-generated picture of Trump presenting himself as Jesus, laying his hand on someone with a light in the other hand and dressed in the robe and the whole thing. You ought to take that that is sacrilegious. I mean, he doesn't qualify to be the Antichrist based on the scripture definition, but he has a spirit of the Antichrist that he wants to destroy everything that does not agree with him. And so this is a very serious scenario. We've got to make a decision here in California. We got to make a decision in San Diego, in the city and the county, and in the congressional seats. And how are you going to vote? Now, we know for a fact at election time, there are people in our community who take the endorsement list that the Voice and Viewpoint does into the polling place on their phone, and they vote that list. Okay. And we have like a 98% track record in terms of the people we endorse getting elected. And we don't endorse anybody based on the fact that they ran an ad with us or they did, or they spoke to us. We're not doing that. We're endorsing based on what the issues are. And that's what we should be doing collectively.
Well, Dr. Warren, and so according to the gentleman today who said, are you ready to make an endorsement? When will the official voters guide come out from the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint?
Well, I'm probably going to be pushing it back. I would think that somewhere in May, about mid-May, we will do it. I'll try to get it out about the time that they start allowing absentee voting.
Mhm.
because we need to have an idea then. And if we don't have an idea then in terms of an endorsement, then we're going to be asking people to think about it. We always ask you to think about it. We just share some thoughts with you in terms of it. Maybe we can help eliminate some people in the process. So we're not making an endorsement just because an endorsement needs to be made.
Mhm.
The endorsements don't elect people. And it's time that we start using the gray matter up there between our ears and thinking, what's important to me? What do I really need? Okay. What am I most concerned about? If I'm homeless, then I ought to be voting for somebody who's going to be supporting funding for homelessness,
Mhm.
not just voting because somebody came in and gave me a Subway sandwich and a Coke and said, here, let's go to the polls and you vote. And you're going to smile and go vote their interests and not your own. No.
Mhm.
And I must remind everyone that every vote is important. I want to show you how important. I've been telling you for the past 3 weeks, reminding you of a Supreme Court case that was Reynolds v. Sims, 1964, the one man, one vote Supreme Court decision, which looked at the 14th Amendment in terms of equality and fairness and how much every vote counts. And of course, when we do the election for president, we have the Electoral College and we get into a kind of a different ballpark. But the Electoral College does not impact these votes that we are able to do right now. We're going to be voting for Congress. We're going to be voting for city council. We're going to be voting for board of supervisors. We're going to be voting for these things.
Mhm.
And we need to know who's going to be user friendly in terms of where we live and our interests. And we need to know who's running in other areas so that we know if our person is going to be able to reach across the aisle and collaborate with someone to get the necessary votes to get our interests met.
Well, that's one of the things you said, that in your voting process, it is about being strategic. Many times we just look at one geographical area of a city and say, well, that's where the majority of the black people are going to vote. But in San Diego, especially, and even in California, we are in every district, in every county. And so we literally have to make sure that we have a group of people, a group of voters that are very aware and that are very engaged. We cannot just be in a geographical area and only serve or walk or knock on doors in that geographical area. We have to knock on every geographical area because we have representation. And like you said, 9 people on the council, we still got to count to five to get anything moved.
Well, but also, just so people don't get overwhelmed with what I'm saying, there's some things that we need to remember. The Voting Rights Act, which was gutted in terms of Section 3, which put the watchers and observers in the South that made a difference so that blacks became a political force. People like Fannie Lou Hamer, who sacrificed her life and her health to get the Southern Democratic bloc broken. And we got to remember that even at the time that she was fighting, is even though Johnson signed the Civil Rights and the Voting Rights Act, Johnson held a press conference on the very day that she was addressing the Democratic National Convention in Chicago as a means of trying to dilute the interests of people hearing and watching her. So, Jesse Jackson used to say that we don't have permanent friends or permanent enemies, just permanent interests.
Mhm.
And so we have to look at who is sharing our interests. We need to know our interests. And that's why, Dr. Thompson, in the first week of May, I'm going to be holding an election forum. I'm still identifying the location, but it'll be a night from 6 to 8. It'll hopefully is on the first Thursday of May, which is May 7th. And we will talk about the importance of the electoral process.
Mhm.
It's not a forum for candidates to come and smile and tell you how much they love you and how they came over here with 10 cents in their pocket and all the wonderful things. This is for you to be reminded of how important this process is by a discussion, historical discussion, a discussion of your interests, a discussion of how your interest gets translated into policy so that you know that you're not just voting for someone giving lip service to support for you, but who that letting them know that you understand. You see, so much starts with interests, And people who have a shared view create an interest group. And out of that interest group, when they decide to act, they become a pressure group. And then when they become a pressure group, then dollars and money flows and policies get developed. So we need to remind people of how this works. And the human mind is such that people often don't tell you what they don't know, but they certainly have a chance to come. They don't have to be bright. They don't have to be smart. They don't have to do anything but sit, listen, think, and let the Lord lead you in terms of what you do. And so this will not be a biased presentation. It's almost like a politics 101 lesson, which people have asked me repeatedly to do. In another life, I have a degree in political science and business and law and government and all that stuff, but that's not as important as the 60 some years I've been engaged in the political process, holding office on the East Coast, running for state office here in California 3 times, uh, knocking on doors from here to Imperial Beach when I ran for the Senate, meeting people. That's how you get to meet people. You get to know who people are and what they think and what they feel, and you talk to folks, and it gets to be very important. Now, we don't all have time to do that, but we certainly have time to stop and think about the quality of life that we have and how it's going to be impacted by whether we act or refuse to act.
Well, Dr. Warren, I tell you, there's so much to talk about with the election. I know a lot of people are just wondering what's our next move. I know that a lot of people are out campaigning. I know that they're now getting a lot of the flyers and the mailers and things of that nature. The one thing that I always say to people is, and I know this is one of the difficult things, but I still believe that elections can still be civil. I believe that we have to not buy into the drama or the incivility that people have when we talk about it. Even when we talk about the person that is in office right now, I like to keep it on what he's doing, what he's not doing. And the thing is that every promise, 90% of all the promises that he made, what he was not going to do, he has done. And so my question moving forward, even with looking at the White House, will the White House ever be rebuilt in his lifetime?
Well, I don't know because we don't know how long he's going to live. As crazy as he is, crazy people have a tendency to live a long time. I think they live a long time because God's given them a chance for redemption because he know hell's going to be really hard on them.
Mhm.
So I don't know, and I think that the only issue with Trump is how do we get rid of him? The 25th Amendment is the avenue that the Constitution has provided, but basically is in the hands of the vice president.
Mhm.
And we know that J.D. Vance will never implement it or even try to get signatures because he needs signatures from members of the cabinet. And then they have to take it to the Congress. The Congress has to act. But I think that as these primaries unravel and these Republicans lose office, uh, I think it's going to come that they're gonna have to go on record in terms of separating themselves from the Donald.
Mhm.
And I believe that criminal uh, activity is waiting for most of them. I mean, they've gone beyond just being a different party. They've crossed the line into the lack of humanity and civil. That's just is just almost hatred for anything that doesn't agree with them. And Mike Johnson is just as much of an embarrassment as Donald Trump. I mean, isn't it interesting that one woman can come forward and the rest of them, and this guy can step down? He's a Democrat. What does the White House press secretary do? She gets on a tube today in a press conference talking about the Democrats knew and it took them so long. Well, look, the man, it happened last week and he's gone this week. What about Gonzalez over there from the Republican from Texas? They've been investigating him for months. And the person that he was involved with, she killed herself. Okay. And so, but they don't mention that. They just want to stay focused. Now we're about to send another 10,000 troops to the Middle East for what? Why? It's going to almost be 20,000 people over there. This is a daily cost of millions, almost billions of dollars for people just standing around over there. If you're going to take the straight, go ahead and take it. If you're not going to take it, leave it alone and get out of the way. And then we got all these people logistically, the food, the fuel, the all of the stuff that's there. And let's not forget that when we put soldiers in the Middle East, other than those who are already on ships, one of the greatest problems we have is water. And then the desalination plants over there, they got more desalination plants than we have because they wouldn't be able to make it without them. And we end up paying for the water that we buy from their plants for our troops. They got to have water every day. So, I mean, this is a war becomes a market opportunity rather than a political principle. And so that's why I say the only issues on the table are regular, premium, and high tests. It ain't got nothing to do with democratic principles. It's all about the dollar and how that's going to work.
Well, Mr. Davis said, will 2028 be the time that we have a three-party or multi-party system for the presidential election?
Do I look like a fortune teller? No, I don't know what we're going to have, but what we're going to have is going to be determined by whether or not we vote. We already got three parties in California. We have Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and there are more registered independents in California than there are Republicans. And so, what's the impact of the three-party system with this coming election? I don't know. And most of us don't have until 2028. We got to get stuff going now if we're going to survive. We're going to have a whole bunch of more dead people by 2028. Could be one of them if I am. I don't have to worry about it. But this just don't make sense. We're sitting on the side, and Dr. Thompson, every Tuesday morning, we have Black Men and Women United. Mm-hmm. We are on the Zoom, and we got people there asking that we come back at least twice a month and meet in person. We send out 120 notices. We tell people the only requirement for membership is that you be Black.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And we don't get the numbers because people are busy.
But one of the things about it, we did address an issue this past Black Men and Women United, and I would like to report that not only was the people on the line responsive, but that issue has been handled, citations and everything in less than a day. And I think that that's one of the things that I think are really powerful when we do get together and we do communicate, when the people that have influence and are in different parts of our city, they can literally make things happen. And so I think at this point, one of the biggest things is to continue to say, look, we got to keep moving forward. I don't already ask the Lord to give you a good 20 more years, so so you can break that 100. So you're going to still be around. So since you're going to be around, they're going to still be coming, sitting down and talking to you and saying, now, Doc, what do you think? And because I think that not even being a fortune teller is really more so being able to say, what is going to work for our success? And I think that everybody still is looking for lack of better words, what is the formula? And what is the formula? And the reason why they're looking for it is because everything does not seem to be working. So they're looking, in search of what are the answers, because it just seems like there's nothing happening. And for me, as a lifelong Democrat, I am so dismayed with the Democratic Party. I've never seen so much weakness from one party, almost as if they are afraid to breathe or say anything for fear of I'll be next. So, people are looking, people are searching, people are coming together and asking. And even the young people are like saying, look, we're trying to figure it out ourselves, because the reality is nothing seems to be working.
Well, I always believe that people have just the kind of government that they deserve based on what they do or fail to do. And as almost as you're talking, it's almost like trying to get a child to take some cod liver oil every night before bed. They don't want to take it because it doesn't taste good, but we know the benefit of it. Mm-hmm. And I still take cod liver oil because it's still good. It's good for the system. Some 30 years ago, an old Muslim brother told me about the benefits of taking it. and I find that it still helps the body. We don't think about what we do in terms of things that we take in. Um, but I share your observation that we we're moving in a direction. We got to make some decisions, yes, but what will work for us at every juncture? I say this, and people don't want to hear it. The thing that's different between today and what we did in the civil rights movement, the thing that's different is that prayer was a very important part of everything that was being done. There was God was in it. And and we have people today who have become so godless that prayer is not in what they do. Lifestyles are opposite what the word says. People are attacking what others believe when the First Amendment gives all of us the freedom of religion to believe or practice as we want to without the obligation of satisfying other people. That's the uniqueness of what we have in this experiment of democracy and this republic that we live in. And so, but I believe that we don't read enough anymore. I believe that we don't have discussion groups anymore, as and at least on the West Coast we don't. On the East Coast, people do. On the East Coast, there are discussion groups. I've mentioned many times. I can't count the number of times when I was at an institute, public policy institute, that at the end of the day I would fly up to Harvard for a dinner meeting and spend the night as we discuss issues that were important for when the next time our party got in power or if people were in power, what kind of things we could get done. We don't do that. We don't give time to things beyond our own interests. And to do that is sacrificial. You know, the person who's the role model of all that is Francine Maxwell, who gives the time in terms of all of these meetings and activities and things that she goes to. We don't need to go to as many as she does, but we need to be engaged because engagement helps us in terms of how we live. And I'll tell you something else, Dr. Thompson. It's really fascinating. I think back. You know, when I was growing up in the South, most of the Black people, of course, they were not educated. They were field hands, they were workers. But you know, the churches built so many of our Black institutions in the South because they understood the value of education. And the thing I used to admire about being back there is that when the workday was over, if people couldn't read, okay, and my little hometown at 5 o'clock every day, there was a guy that came on the radio who read the news, and people gathered around the radio to hear the news if they didn't get the daily paper. We got the paper, but everybody still listened to him, and his voice became a household thing in terms of it. And I found that the people who listened to the news or read the news really kept up with the issues that were on the table and understood how they impacted them. We don't pay attention to the issue until we're in crisis.
Mhm.
And then when we're in crisis, we see it happen with Black Men and Women United. Here come people rushing in. They want you to stop the meeting and let them tell you about what their problems are. We ain't, you know, go find a psychologist and get a couch to lay on or go someplace and pray. That's not our purpose. Okay. If we're helping each other along the way, just like we did the other day, just like we did when we got engaged with Bell and met the needs of the kids there, just like we do when a need comes up and we dig in our pockets and respond to it, and we don't have a treasurer or organizational format and all of that stuff that ties people up and gets them in trouble. That's because we care about each other.
Mhm.
And I think that's what we have to get back to.
Well, and I think, Dr. Warren, that's the key word is that we have to care enough, at this time, like you said, you might not be here at a certain period of time. I might not be here at a certain period of time. We're seeing that even our young people, it says in the last days, old men will dream dreams and young men will have visions. So even in that sense, we still have to work while it's day and do the things and leave things behind. I've been encouraging not only myself, but leaders as a whole. We still have to leave something to the next generation, but then the next generation has to be ready to receive it And also, I always say you have to receive the good, the bad, and the indifferent, because it's not going to always come. And I want to say, Dr. Warren, you talked about cod liver oil. I remember cod liver oil. I remember there was another oil that they would have people,
Castor oil.
castor oil.
Yeah.
And Dr. Warren, I had castor oil once in my life. It changed my life forever. I never was sick around my godmother ever again because she was going to pull out that castor oil. So not everybody going to take the cod liver oil or the castor oil, but see, older folks also know how to give you that cod liver oil, that castor oil, and they doctor it up. Throw it in some juice or some sugar or something, but they doctor it up so that
sometimes
it's
they
easy.
just gave it to you on a spoon, because the third thing they gave, and most people really probably don't remember this, is you buy it in the hardware store. There's sulfur, a yellow sulfur, and they gave you a teaspoon of sulfur, and you took that and you drank water. And the thing about the sulfur is that the sulfur really killed the parasites and things in the system. So it was good for the body in general. It was like a cleansing agent. And a lot of us could use cleansing when you think of all the junk that we eat and drink and the stuff that we do. Okay. But at the end of the day, there is encouragement. We got a bunch of young people doing great things. We don't want to miss them. They're in school, and I see them every place. I go into the healthcare system. I see all these young people that look like doctors that look like they should still be in romper room. But and we got them. We got young doctors, lawyers, judges, young people who are doing things, and so we don't ever want to fail to celebrate them in terms of what they're doing. But there's still time for the rest of us to get some things done.
Yeah.
That's important.
And I think that's what's really, I think the cry is now is for us to come together, get on the same page. It's almost like I always tell people, we both are martial artists and we both know how to handle certain situations. But I don't know about you, but hitting somebody now is this a little bit more painful than it was back in the day. So I'd rather have a young person that got good, strong hands to be before me. But one of the things about it is as we begin to move forward, we use new technology, but the old technology is not to be replaced. It's designed to be enhanced. And so, again, young people being a trusted messenger, young people being able to write and to be a part of the message that is coming out, not just in social media that's really quick, that's one snapshot, but then putting it in for prosperity's sake, putting it in where it stays for the history of history and can be recalibrated, re-looked at. And there's nothing like opening up paper, holding it, and I'm gonna still say it's a cool thing, Dr. Warren. You got your hat on and everything, but all you need right now is a cup of coffee and the voice and viewpoint, and you would be the next model for the next magazine cover out.
Yeah, well, okay. But, I do want to say this as you're speaking, and to those people who have been so faithful to spend time with us each week, to listen, to raise questions. I want you to know that you are truly appreciated. For those who support us at the paper, who read and subscribe and buy, to those who take the paper in your churches and you take them home and you read, and you validate the efforts that we put forth to gather this information from the four corners. News comes from north, east, west, and south, the four directions, and so we try to find the information, and we try to make sure that we're doing the right thing in terms of reaching out to you. So I want you to know that I appreciate you. The paper appreciates you. We appreciate the time you spend with this program. And uh, the greatest tribute is to pass the word, to spend time talking to someone who otherwise wouldn't take the time, and to convince them that they need to make some room. They got an inscription on the elevators at Sharp Memorial Hospital that says, "We get a life by what we earn. We make a living by what we earn. We make a life by what we give." We make a living by what we earn. We make a life by what we give. And so let's see who we can give to and what we can do. You know, every week we do obituaries in the paper, and it's interesting the things that people write. Well, he was a great fisherman, and she was a great cook, and they played a mean hand of cards and all of that stuff. It's all about what you do. Longfellow said, "Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time." And so we're not too young to start thinking of what we leave. We're not too young to start thinking about the contributions that we can make. And we appreciate you. I just wanted to have a chance to say that.
Well, Dr. Warren, is duly noted, and we appreciate the tenacity and the stick to itness. Dr. Michelle would say the bulldog mentality to keep moving on, even when times get rough and it doesn't seem like the appreciation for the work is out there. There's always this new life that comes through it, and I want to encourage people that young people, young adults, you are the new life. Those that are retired and are now saying they're seeking a second career, that you are part of the new life. You are the trusted messengers that have something to say. And here's the fun thing about it is you might read the newspaper, pick up the Voice and Viewpoint and say, "Oh, I wish it had a little bit more of that." You might have just created an opportunity for you because if I said, "Hey, cover it," send it in and see how it's a part. And the beautiful thing about the Voice and Viewpoint is if you have something to say, you can write a letter to the desk of the editor. And most of the times they read it. If it's substantial, they literally put it in. Now, they're not going to put in a whole bunch of nonsense, but they will put in your letter so people can read it. So, Dr. Warren, before we get out of here tonight, can you just give people a quick snapshot of what the editorial is going to be? And it's coming out tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah, the editorial is out. It went out today across the country to all of our papers and across the state here. And it's really a discussion uh, of what we need to be thinking about and where do we go. Uh, we got all of these changes that are occurring with people stepping down and new opportunities being created. And I think we need to make a list and prioritize what it is that we want to get done. What can we do? What do we need? And then just start coming forward. I think we can make a big difference if we do those things. The paper's online, as I always like to remind you, in addition to being available in the churches and senior centers and all the places that we make it available. I want to encourage you to be as supportive of God Radio One. We for so many years we tried to have a black radio station here, and we just couldn't get it done. Dr. Thompson and his genius, and he and Dr. Michelle have found a way to do this, and so it's just a matter of support. And you didn't get a chance to tell us how the House of Blues went, so but you're on many places, and we need to know when people have events, we need to encourage them to come to mandate for Dr. Thompson to orchestrate the setup. That's what he does, and we shouldn't be going looking for people when we have folks right here that can do so much. We're getting ready for the fair. He's going to be there again. It's going to be on probably a reduced scale, the way things are going, but he's still going to be there.
Yeah,
And
June
so,
27th.
and so we need to be supportive of these things.
Yes, and last but not least, we want to say to you all, if you have not registered to vote, please register to vote. This is the time. This is the season. We need boots on the ground. They got a song out there called "Boots on the Ground." Y'all turn it on and go get yourself registered and be a part of it. This is from the Desk of the Editor with Dr. John Warren. Y'all be blessed. Final words.
Just be blessed and put God first.
Amen. Y'all have a great evening.